Chris here, CaribbeanPod.com. It's been such an up and down summer. I haven't been paying attention to the garden. Added to that, two of our girls moved out to college, so it's been a lot of work with that. The garden has been neglected. However, I just noticed, and if we go in here, you'll see what I'm talking about. Got tons of ripe tomatoes. Boy, look, all up in here. Tons and tons of ripe tomato. So I'm thinking I'm going to do a recipe with all of those ripe tomatoes. Today we're going to do, you know what, I love tomatoes, choka, which is roasted tomato with garlic and onions and scotch bonnet peppers. Then you chunk it with some oil. So what I'm going to do is my take on a roasted tomato and rice soup, which I call tomatoes, choka, and rice soup, you know. Chris here, CaribbeanPod.com, guys. Let's make some use of all that tomato I've got. Any good tomatoes, choka, and you'd have peppers, but we're not using that today. That there is the Indian ghost pepper. Over here we've got the chocolate scorpion, too hot for us. Here we have the scotch bonnet, the typical scotch bonnet peppers, and that's what we're going to use. I'm going to use one green scotch bonnet pepper. First up, we got to roast these tomatoes, and I've got a nice hot grill here. And all we're going to do, stem side down, I'm just going to place them onto the grill. You want them to fire roast. All that skin is going to get charred, but that is cool. And just away from the direct flame, I'm going to put that one tiny scotch bonnet pepper in there. Remember guys, I'm doing this with a whole scotch bonnet pepper. You don't need to do this. You can use a quarter or half. And if you don't want the heat, don't do the heat. I'm just going to grill these now until they're fully cooked, probably about 10-15 minutes or so. I will flip them until they're nice and charred. Got some nice grill marks happening on that scotch bonnet pepper there, so I'm going to remove that and set it aside because I don't want it to char any more than that. But as you can see, the tomatoes are grilling nice. I flip them over. We're just going to give them anywhere from about 15 to 20 minutes on the grill, high heat, and then we'll take them inside to cool down. So I've got all my ingredients prepped over here, and we're just going to go. I've got my nice heavy pan here heating on a medium high heat, and I'm going to go in with about a tablespoon or so of olive oil. And then the first thing we're going to do is to add some diced onions. We want that to sweat down and release a ton of flavor for us, as well as some chopped up garlic. Make sure your stove is on low at this point, because we really don't want to burn this. We just want this to sweat down and start building that flavor from the bottom up. Next we're going to go in with some fresh ground black pepper. And I like giving it a nice dose because I want to pick up all that lovely heat and earthiness from that pepper. I've got here about a teaspoon of fresh thyme that I chopped up finely. Again, my heat is still on low because we're trying to release and build flavors here. And finally, about a teaspoon or so of chopped up shadow benny. Shadow benny or chardon benny will also be called bandana or culantro. If you can't get shadow benny, you can use some cilantro, about a tablespoon and a half or so. Give that a quick stir and let that continue sweating down for another minute and a half or so. Just want to turn your attention over to here a little bit, and this is that grilled scotch bonnet pepper. I'm just going to put it on the side. We're going to add that later. Remember, if you don't want that raw heat that I'm craving at this point, just use a little piece, maybe about a quarter of a scotch bonnet pepper, and you should be good to go. These are the tomatoes that I had roasting on the grill outside, and so easy the skin comes off. So that's basically all you're going to do is remove the skin, and it should be cool because you really don't want to burn your hands. You will notice also, these are fresh tomatoes out of my garden. I notice all that liquid that came out there. Save that, we're going to be using that. But basically all we want to do is take these out, put them on your board here, remove all of that skin, like so, and give that a rough chop. Almost to the point where you're mincing it up, because that's going to go into the soup. And you're going to do the same thing for the 3 other tomatoes. All of that chopped up tomato is in there. If you want to try and de-seed this tomato, I mean, I say you can certainly do that. If you use something like those Italian tomatoes, the Roma tomatoes, they have less seeds, so that may be the way to go. I had some liquid left over from when that tomato was cooling in my bowl, so I'm just going to add that. There's a ton of flavor in there. Now it's where we're going to turn up that heat now to like a medium high, because we want to bring this up to a boil. At the same time, I'm going to go in with a little bit of tomato paste. This is just to give it just a little bit more of that strong tomato base that I'm looking for. Totally optional, but I mean to say, if you want to add that little extra flavor, do that. Bring this up to a boil. I've got a few more ingredients to go in here. I've got some sea salt. I'm going to give that a generous pinch of sea salt. Give that a quick stir. Now guys, when you're salting this, I'm going to be using chicken stock in here to cook this. Typically, stock of any kind, be it vegetarian. So if you're doing this vegetarian, the only difference is you'll be using vegetable stock. Try to keep in mind that the stock, whatever stock you're using, usually has a lot of salt in there. So you may want to salt this later on. It's totally up to you. Give that a quick stir. Look at that lovely color. This flavor is coming out of this. It's simply stunning. So in goes my chicken stock. I'm going to toss in that scotch bonnet pepper that I roasted. And those of you who are familiar with tomatoes choka, as I spoke about earlier, will have already seen all those lovely ingredients go in here. The final thing to go in here is some rice. So I'm just going to go ahead and wash my rice. I'm using parboiled brown rice, and we're going to put it in here. It's just started to come up to a boil. Already smelling wicked, you know. I've got here 1 cup of that brown parboiled rice already washed. That's going to go in there. And you can put more rice if you want in here. I really want this to be very soup-like consistency, so I'm not going to go in with too much rice. But about a cup and a half of rice will be perfect. We're still trying to bring this up to a boil. I've got here a pinch of brown sugar just to counteract any tartness from those fresh tomatoes. And the final ingredient, a little bit of ground coriander. Give that a quick stir, and we want to bring that up to a boil. Once it comes up to a boil, you want to let that go for about 20 to 25 minutes. It's going on a rolling boil now, but you will notice at the very top there's going to be some residue forming at the top. So all you're going to do is, using your spoon, just sort of skim that off, and all we're going to do is toss that out. Give that a quick stir and let that go until the rice is nice and tender. 20-25 minutes or so. I'm going to give this a quick stir, guys. Look at that. And the kitchen smelling wicked. Got all those nice plump grains of rice, you boy. Rice and tomatoes, choka soup, yes. Let me just turn off this heat here for a minute. Hit it with a little chopped parsley to finish it off, to brighten it up a little bit, guys. You're going to love this soup. You really got to give it a try, man. Yeah guys, it's always a pleasure to have you guys here in the kitchen with me. I do hope you guys give this recipe a try. My take on rice and tomatoes choka soup, roasted tomato with rice. Boy, you're gonna love it. Remember, if you want to make this fully vegetarian, use vegetarian stock or vegetable stock. The chicken stock works well for me. Taste for salt and serve with some nice crusty bread. If you have some coconut bake, even better. Have a good one.